Math has never been a subject that has come naturally to me, and it's been a source of anxiety for as long as I can remember. And I know a lot of other adults feel that way. So how can we prevent our children from developing the same fear and anxiety that we have towards math? The key is that we have to focus our energy on providing our children with mental math strategies so that they are able to effectively conquer basic mathematical concepts with confidence. Before we get started, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a new upload. What is mental math? First, let's talk about what it is and what it is not. Mental math is the ability to make mental computations in your mind without the use of a pencil or a paper. Mental math is not memorizing basic math facts, and while it does help mental math strategies to have a basic understanding of math facts, the two are not mutually exclusive. It's also important to note that all children will use mental math differently, and they'll gravitate towards strategies that feel more natural to them. Some of the mental math strategies that they learn might feel really simple and fun and easy to use, while others might confuse and frustrate them. It's fine to teach them as many different strategies as you would like to, but do remember that the overarching goal is that your child arrives at the correct answer. The path to that answer doesn't matter as long as the answer is correct. We want our children to understand that there are multiple ways to arrive at the same answer because we are all different people with different minds and different ways that we process information. If you force them to use a strategy, I want you to consider this analogy. Imagine that you gave your child a shoe that was either one size too big or one size too small. Sure, they might be able to squeeze their foot in or fit their foot in that shoe, but it would not feel natural for them to walk in that shoe. It would not feel comfortable for them. Math strategies are a lot like that. If they don't feel natural to us, they are not going to help us in the same ways that other strategies might. Speaking from personal experience, I can say that if you are not practicing mental math, you will never truly feel comfortable with math as you're going through school. It has taken me into adulthood, well into adulthood, to start to feel even slightly more confident in my ability to do mental computations. And the only reason that I do now is because it's the way that I teach my students. I know how much I struggled with math as a young child, and I don't want any of my students or your children to feel the same way that I did. I never felt like I was good at it. I always felt like a fraud because I could memorize the math facts, but I really had no conceptual understanding of what was happening. From calculating tips at restaurants to deciding what 20% off of a price is at the store, I now use mental math computation all the time, and I'm sure you do too without even realizing it. Setting our kids up for success and showing them that there are multiple ways to arrive at the same answer will give them the confidence they need to be successful, not only in school, but in their careers as well. So let's get to it and let's talk about some ways that you can support mental math for your child. The first activity I want to share with you, I absolutely cannot take credit for. This one goes to my former teaching partner, Denise. She called this incredible equations, and you may have heard it from another name, but that's what I always called it when I worked with her. Basically, what you do is you give your child a number and you write it at the top of a paper. That number is the answer that they are aiming for. So they have to develop as many different equations as they can that will equal that answer, and they have to be able to explain to you how they know that answer is correct. When I did this in my classroom, I always did it as a whole group, and we just sat on the carpet. The kids had nothing with them. They had no manipulatives or objects to use. They would develop strategies, and other students would give equations, and we would all be learning from one another based on how everyone's brains worked so differently. The next activity I have is one that I made up kind of on the spot in my classroom one day. I just call it agree or disagree. All you have to do is write out a full equation with the answer included. Ahead of time, I want you to decide if that answer that you're putting at the end of the equation is going to be correct or if it's going to be incorrect. It has to be an equation that your child will be able to solve. So don't give them something that is so complicated that they won't know if the answer is correct or incorrect. The point here is for them to think through their mental computation to the point that they can explain to you why they agree that your answer is right or why they disagree and know your answer is incorrect. This is always a very popular activity in my class because they get to tell the teacher that they disagree and that they are right about something and I am wrong about something. It also gives kids the opportunity to realize that they have to question information that's presented to them. They cannot take things as fact just because an adult is presenting them with information. they need to think these things through. They need to have critical thinking skills like this to feel confident enough to say, I actually disagree with that answer, and here's why. This next activity is inspired by a math professor I had while I was getting my teaching credential in college. She showed us dot plates. All you do is you get paper plates and dot stickers, and you have different quantities of dots on each of the plates. You flash them to your child and ask them, how many dots do you see? And the child will count and answer you. Then you have to ask them, how did you see the dots? Meaning, how did you group them or how did you count them in your mind so that you were able to give me that answer? Some kids will start at 1 and tell you, well, I counted them all one at a time. Some kids might divide them into groups and say, oh, I saw 2, 2, and 3, and I knew that the answer was 7. Some kids might say, I saw 3, 3, and 1, and I knew the answer was 7. And you can start to see that there are different methods that children use to compute mentally, even with a visual array of items. This activity is called hide and seek, and it is one that I have mentioned in my videos previously. All you need is a group of objects, and if I were you, I would only do objects from 3 to about 10, and that's because it's harder to mentally compute when the numbers are larger. So I would stay within that 3 to 10 object range. You're going to show your child the group of objects and allow them to count the full quantity. Then your child's going to close their eyes, and you are going to remove some of the objects, hide them behind your back, put them under the rug, whatever it might be. And then your child will look and see what is remaining and have to tell you how many are hiding. So this is a really great way for them to mentally add or mentally subtract based on the knowledge of what number of objects they had to start with and how many they are seeing now. The last piece of advice I have for you is to teach mental computation strategies. One that is very familiar to all of us is making a 10. So finding equations where making a 10 would make the equation a little bit easier to solve. Great strategy because it's easier to add groups of 10 than it is to add numbers that are not in groups of 10. The next strategy that we use in the classroom is called making a helpful or friendly number. And all that means is that if you're adding a number that is close to a friendly number or an easy to add number, you can add a little bit to the original number to make it easier to add, and then adjust your answer accordingly. So for example, if you're doing 78 plus 22, well, 78 is a little bit harder to add than say 80. So you might have your child add 2 to create 80, and then 80 plus 22, and then subtract 2 from the answer. So it sounds a little complicated, but a lot of my students really do gravitate naturally towards this strategy because it's easier for them to add those friendly numbers and then subtract the difference at the end. Another strategy is to break numbers into their expanded form. If you're not familiar with what expanded form is, it's basically putting numbers into their place value form. So for example, if your child's adding 126 to 322, they can break that down into expanded form. So it would be 100 plus 300 is 400, 20 plus 20 is 40, 6 plus 2 is 8, with the answer being 448. So you can see how simple it is to break a number into expanded form if your child understands place value. Another strategy that we teach in the elementary school classroom is teaching the strategy of doubles and doubles plus 1. So doubles would be 7 plus 7 is 14, 6 plus 6 is 12. When they get an equation like 6 plus 7, they could know immediately that the answer is 13 because that is a doubles plus 1 equation. 6 plus 6 plus 1. Another example of doubles plus 1 would be 6 plus 5. We know that answer is 11 because 5 plus 5 is 10 plus 1 more is 11. But do remember not to force strategies on your child because it will not help them if it is a strategy they are not comfortable with. I'm actually curious to know which of these strategies you feel you gravitate towards more as an adult. Let me know in the comments if you're willing to share. That's all I've got for you today in terms of mental math and how important it is. If you liked this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with a friend who might find it helpful, useful, or interesting. Until next time, have fun learning with your little ones.